Hi there, welcome to tip number 5. So this is the last one in the series and I'm so happy you guys joined in and I hope you're finding it useful. So we work through a lot of different areas in the body in terms of where we have our weight distribution in our feet and how that impacts on your hips. Today we're kind of going to bring it all together and into a small little exercise that you can use just as a general movement exercise but also as a diagnostic, so you can start to look at exactly where the problem is. So then you can look at where the muscles are that attach around that area, or you can start to use movements that kind of open that space. So if something feels tight, it's about trying to figure out whether it needs opening or closing, because there could still be tension there either way. But today we're just going to look at how we generally move through a circle and looking at quadrants in the body. And so the quadrants become really useful. So here we go, up into standing. So if we start with the feet hip distance apart, and then just put one hand at the lower abdomen and one hand just below your lower back, so more towards your sacroiliac joints. And just let your feet be flat on the floor so you've got equal weight on both sides. Soften those feet and knees, and then just start to send your body in a circle around your feet. So imagine you had a chalk outline around your feet. And you're just going to slowly drift your hips around in that circle. And what I'd like you to notice is, where do you feel restrictions? Where does it feel harder in that circle? And just to make it a little bit easier, we're going to talk about quadrants. And so if we had our circle and we had a line going through front to back and a line going through side to side, that would give us 4 sections, 4 quadrants. And so we have the front right, front left, back right and back left. And so as you go the other way now, think about whether the restriction falls into which quadrant, because that gives you a little bit more of a narrow focus as to what we need. And so try to make sure that the feet feel relatively comfortable with this. When you go forward, it's quite easy to grip with the toes, so try to think about going into the balls of the feet only and allowing those toes to stay quite relaxed. We often overextend into that space and the toes end up working much harder than they need to. Now, if we think about our quadrants, say for example, I was struggling with the right front quadrant as I went through the circle. When I come round into that space, it felt like it was a little tighter. So now I'm going to send my hips into that right front and the left back. And so the knees are going to stay straight here, and we're just sending the pelvis forward and back. And so keep the movement small, make sure that you're comfortable with it. And say breathe in as you go forward, and then breathe out as you go back. And so it's easy sometimes when you're concentrating on something new to not breathe, and it's really important to keep that breath constant and even instead of holding it. Now, if we go into that forward and back movement, we're going to try the opposite quadrant just for argument's sake. So go left forward and right back. And so we're working on a diagonal with our hips. And so if you're not happy with the diagonal movement, stay with the circles. It's equally important to do either one or both. And as you come back in, we're going to go back and recheck. And so when we go into that, for me, we were talking about it being the front right quadrant. Does it feel easier to get into that space than it did? And so by going in the diagonals, it allows us to be a little bit more focused on where we need to open and where we need to close, and where we need to get more movement happening in the hips. And so when you use that quadrant, it just gives you that chance to explore those spaces a little bit more. So when you come back into the bigger circle, it should feel easier as you go through that space. The more ease you create in the hips, the less discomfort you have, and the more you can start to move and do normal things. So I hope you kept some notes from this week, and I'm very happy to help you out if you have any questions. My email is at the bottom of all of the emails you've received this week. You can also join my free Facebook group. It's called the Body Brilliant Club. And what I do in there is basically give you tips and hints and all kinds of interesting articles and things that you can read or do just to keep your body moving better. So hope to see you there. The link is in the email for the free Facebook group, and take care.